Good afternoon, folks. It's great to be here today with Ministers Calgary, Sawhney and Schweitzer to make an historic announcement that will get tens of thousands of unemployed Albertans back to work. But before I get to that, I want to share some good news with you today about tonight's hockey game in Edmonton. Alberta Health has approved an exemption for 12 of Alberta's frontline healthcare workers to attend Game 1 of the Oilers-Jets playoff series, watch the Oilers beat the Jets, and to stand with the Oil when the anthem is sung by Rob Clark tonight at Rogers Place. This is just a small token of Alberta's appreciation for the tireless work protecting Albertans over these very difficult 15 months from all of our healthcare workers. And while we certainly would love to be able to welcome more fans into Rogers Place to watch the Oilers make their run for the Stanley Cup, I think it's fitting to start with those who have faced down this pandemic on the front lines and helped us all to make it through. You know, we are nearing the end of this brutal pandemic. Albertans are stepping up in increasing numbers to stop the spike. We continue to set new records for daily doses of vaccines administered, and just yesterday we hit a key threshold, passing the 50% mark for Albertans over the age of 12 who have received their first dose, and we are leading Canada on second doses administered by a good margin. We're getting jabs into arms at a faster pace than ever, and in just a few short weeks, I believe if we stick to our guns and people keep signing up for the vaccine, we'll be able to turn the corner on this pandemic and head into a great Alberta summer. But we all know that the pandemic has had devastating consequences for working Albertans and small businesses, and that those consequences will last for quite some time. The worst global economic crisis since the Great Depression and the biggest collapse of energy prices in history have put huge pressure on families, businesses, and our economy. That's why we were the first Canadian government out of the gates with an economic recovery plan, Alberta's Recovery Plan. It's a bold plan to build, diversify, and create tens of thousands of jobs. It started with a historic $10 billion infrastructure build last year to get Albertans back to work, while creating the key environment for our economy to grow and thrive to attract new job-creating investment. We follow that up with our $20.3 billion building plan in this year's budget and much more. Now that brings me to today and the next step in the recovery plan, the Alberta Jobs Now program. Through Jobs Now, the Alberta government, in partnership with the federal government, is investing up to $370 million to help create good jobs, working with employers to hire and train new employees. Alberta's government will spend $185 million, plus $185 million through the federal government's workforce development agreement on this job-creating program. We estimate that this program will help more than 22,000 unemployed and underemployed Albertans get back into the workforce. This is the single biggest employment training program in Alberta's history, and it will give Alberta another tool to help get those folks back to work. This program is on top of a number of other programs that Albertans can already access for job training, including a whole lot of different programs that are out there administered by the Department of Labour. Combined with $370 million of Alberta Jobs Now, we believe this is hundreds of millions of dollars of support for job training. Under Jobs Now, employers will be able to apply for funding to help reduce the costs to hire and train unemployed Albertans for new positions in their companies. The Jobs Now program can help employers hire up to 20 workers. Under the program, there is a grant to help support jobs for workers with disabilities as well. Not only is Jobs Now an investment that will pay back Albertans with jobs, growth, and a stronger economy, it's a show of confidence in Alberta's entrepreneurs and workers. Jobs Now will help bring optimism and fresh hope to thousands of Albertans who have been struggling to find work. Ministers Calgary, Sawhney, and Schweitzer have more to say about the Alberta Jobs Now program, and I'll let them get into the details. So I just want to finish with a message of hope. I truly believe that once we emerge from this pandemic, that we will embark on an Alberta renaissance. Several banks and think tanks project that Alberta will lead the country in growth, with projections that range from a 6% growth to 8% growth of our economy this year. We just had our best year ever for venture capital investment, doubling the previous record. Since March of last year, Alberta has seen nearly 46,000 businesses incorporated. Those are new businesses. And in the first 3 months of this year, we've seen 13,000 businesses incorporated, an increase of 30% from last year. In fact, in March of this year, nearly 5,000 businesses were incorporated, the highest monthly total in 10 years, and I can't think of a better expression of Alberta's entrepreneurial culture than people starting new businesses during this challenging time. What an amazing example of Alberta's optimism. And I want to encourage those job creators to look at how this program, Jobs Now, can help you hire and train the workers that you need, because oddly, even though we have far too many unemployed Albertans, a growing number of businesses are reporting skill and labor shortages. We have to bridge that gap. That's what this program's about. I also have a message for every unemployed Albertan. Watch for new job openings up in your area and make the most of these opportunities by utilizing the Alberta Jobs Now program. We're providing more than 22,000 Albertans with economic security because of this program. Workers, families, and businesses have been pillars of strength, and we're happy to be able to provide additional support to help them throughout this pandemic. And if this program succeeds in helping get Albertans back to work, we're prepared to extend the program into the new fiscal year next year to continue to ensure that our economic recovery moves forward. Albertans will be able to enter the workforce with the new skills that they need to succeed. So Minister Copping will have more details to share about how the program works, and thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing from the other speakers.
Thank you very much, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. I've been looking forward to today's announcement because it is a significant boost for Alberta employers and unemployed Albertans alike. As the Premier said, the Alberta Jobs Now program will provide up to $370 million to help businesses reduce the costs of creating good jobs and hiring and training new employees. Alberta's government is providing $185 million, matching the Federal Workforce Development Agreement funding for the creation of this historic program. This program is creating a win-win solution. It reduces costs for employers, and it gets Albertans back to work sooner. And that's what everyone in this equation needs right now. The Alberta Jobs Now program is about creating opportunities for training and long-term jobs. So how does it work? Let's start with the employers. The Alberta Jobs Now program is for small, medium, and large businesses in the private and nonprofit sectors alike and across all sectors and industries in the province. If your business falls within these wide parameters, you can apply online to receive a grant that you can use to train new employees or subsidize their wages. The grant will cover 25% of an employee's salary for a 52-week period up to a maximum of $25,000 per employee and can be used for salary or training costs or both. The Alberta Jobs Now program payment structure is designed to retain employees and support jobs for the long term. The employer will need to commit to job creation for at least 1 year to collect the grant funding, as a first payment will be provided at week 12 of employment and the final payment will be delivered at week 52. This historic program is open. There are no minimums or lost revenue parameters. I also want to point out that if employers hire persons with disabilities, they will receive a grant 1.5 times higher than the amount they receive for other new employees, up to a maximum of $37,500 per employee. And Minister Sawhney will speak more concerning this aspect of the program. Now, employers can apply for funding for up to 20 new employees, and the first intake opens tomorrow. You can apply online at alberta.ca/jobsnow. And we'll be accepting applications until August 31st during this first intake. Then we'll make another round of funding available in a second intake on September 15th until the end of December. We recognize that hiring people takes time, especially right now, and that is why there will be multiple intakes for employers to apply. I encourage employers to start thinking about where you may be able to create long-term jobs and grow your business and grow the Alberta economy. Of course, the Alberta Jobs Now program also benefits unemployed or underemployed Albertans by giving them the opportunity to find a job or to receive training that improves their skills. We anticipate that the program will see the creation of tens of thousands of new jobs, jobs that will get more than 22,000 Albertans back to work and help Alberta's economy recover. I'm especially enthusiastic about the potential for supporting Albertas who have higher levels of unemployment, such as women, recent immigrants, and youth and recent graduates, because employers will be more likely to employ Albertans if they receive funding to hire and train new employees for the skills that they need. The bottom line is that with support from the Alberta Jobs Now program, employers can afford to hire and train workers for the skills and their business needs to be successful, and Albertans have the opportunity to gain new skills and find good-paying jobs. I encourage employers in Alberta to check out the Alberta website at alberta.ca/jobsnow and see how the Alberta Jobs Now program can work for your organization and help get Albertans back to work. That web address, again, is alberta.ca/jobsnow, and it'll be open tomorrow. Thank you, and I'd like to pass it to my colleague, Minister Schweitzer.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, Minister Copping. Over the last few months, I've had the opportunity to get out and chat with around 40 plus chambers of commerce across Alberta. Our goal is to get over to meet with and talk to over 50 by the end of this month. And we've had a lot of feedback coming in from the small business community in particular about how do they get Albertans back into the workforce, the impacts on their community of unemployment and long-term unemployment for so many of the people across Alberta. And this Jobs Now program is going to help lead the way to getting tens of thousands of Albertans back into the workforce. I can't tell you how many small businesses have asked, saying, what other programs can be out there? We know that our workers need new skills. We want to bring these people back into the workforce. What can our government do to help us out? And with the leadership of Minister Copping and the Premier to see this program come to fruition, it's an exciting day to see this happen, to get Albertans the training that they need to get back into the workforce. And as the Premier highlighted in his comments, there's so many good things to look forward to in the second half of this year in particular. Let's get through this pandemic right now, get those vaccines in the arms as fast as humanly possible. And with all these economic forecasts that we're seeing, the rebound in our commodity prices, the diversification that's happening in our economy right now, from the tech sector to the film and television industry, to our conventional drivers of our economy and employment there's lots of opportunities for Albertans. There's lots of new skill sets that are needed. And this program right here is going to help make sure that our employers, those entrepreneurs out there, have the resources they need to bring Albertans into the workforce. So thank you, Minister Copping, for all of your work on this as part of our big recovery plan. Thank you, Premier, for your leadership on this program. We're excited to see what this is going to do for small businesses and businesses across this province. So take advantage of this program, Jobs Now. It's an exciting initiative that we're launching here today. And with that, I'll introduce my colleague, Minister Sawhney.
Thank you, Minister Schweitzer, and well said. As our economy starts to recover, getting Albertans back to work is a top priority of this government. The Alberta Jobs Now program is proof of that commitment. The COVID-19 pandemic has left many business owners struggling to survive, struggling to grow, and struggling to keep their employees. This program is a great investment because it's a timely helping hand to business owners by opening up new jobs for unemployed Albertans who are anxious to get back to work, including those with additional barriers to employment. That includes women who have been hit hardest by job loss during the pandemic, who have been disproportionately impacted. The data shows it, and there are numerous publications that attest to it. That's why it is imperative that women are not left behind as Alberta's economy recovers. The economic payoff alone is significant. According to a report by McKinsey & Company, it is estimated that Canada could add $150 billion to its annual GDP by 2026 by supporting women's participation in the workforce. The bottom line is that we need more women in the workforce, and investing in women through initiatives like Alberta Jobs Now is a critical step towards a post-COVID economic recovery that doesn't leave anyone on the sidelines. Another group that is underrepresented in the workforce is people with disabilities. People with disabilities make essential contributions to Alberta's economy each and every day. Yet, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is much higher than it is for the average person. That's not because of a lack of ability, it's often down to a lack of opportunity. This is what I've been hearing from the disability community in almost every single conversation I've had, and the Alberta Jobs Now program will address this. The extra incentive in the program to hire people with disabilities means employers will be more likely to give them the consideration that they deserve. Because every Albertan deserves to have meaningful employment, to earn a living, and be included as a valuable member of their community. This program gives Albertans, including those with disabilities, greater opportunities to be hired and receive important training that will help them achieve fulfilling employment. In closing, I would like to encourage Alberta's private and nonprofit employers to use this program to hire people with disabilities and get women back into the workforce. And I encourage all Albertans to keep an eye out for job openings that interest them. Thank you, and I would now like to introduce the CEO of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce, Ken Colby.
Well, thanks, Minister Sawhney, and thanks, Premier and Minister Copping, for the invitation to be here today at this very exciting announcement. The Alberta Chambers of Commerce is a voluntary federation of 122 community chambers around Alberta, who in turn represent in excess of 25,000 businesses. And I say that because this program will benefit employers and employees right around Alberta. This is a very positive partnership between the province and the federal government to help employers get Albertans back to work. Business Insights through our Alberta Perspectives research shows the availability of industry-specific skills is a top barrier for employers to recruit the talent they need to compete. A program with the flexibility for businesses to develop industry-specific skills in their workforce to help them grow and thrive. It's what our members have been asking for. We're very pleased to see there will be multiple intakes for this program, allowing all operators to access these supports as businesses and our economy comes back online in the coming weeks and months. Thank you, Premier Kenney and Minister Copping, for working together with the Government of Canada to bring this program to Alberta at a crucial time for getting our economy growing again. And I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Murray Sigler from the Calgary Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks very much, Ken, for the warm introduction, and thanks for your support of business and job creation in the province. It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of the Calgary business community for an announcement that will provide critical support for businesses and unemployed Albertans. Job creation is one of the most important challenges facing the Alberta economy. And this investment of up to $25,000 in salaries and retraining for new hires will help businesses create jobs and get Albertans back to work. Stable employment, particularly after the year we've had, is key to achieving a full economic recovery and ensuring people have the jobs they need to maintain their quality of life. These direct supports provide stability for businesses, enabling them to hire staff despite the ongoing economic uncertainty we face. By providing the flexibility to use this funding for retraining, employers can support Alberta's workforce in attaining the skills needed to thrive in a rapidly evolving economy. Alberta has one of the most highly educated populations in the world. We have an important opportunity to build on this talent to ensure our employment opportunities and economy are strong and stable moving forward. We're also pleased to see such great collaboration between different orders of government. Supporting job creation for everyone including those who have historically been underemployed, should be a key priority for all governments. We thank you, Premier Kenney, and Ministers Copping, Schweitzer, and Sawhney on behalf of the Calgary business community for your support through the Alberta Jobs Now program. As Calgary businesses, we look forward to continuing to work together to build a strong economy that supports employment and reskilling opportunities and makes Calgary and Alberta a great place to work and live. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to my Oiler-attired friend and colleague, CEO of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, Janet Riopel. Janet?
Murray, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And then Premier Kenney, thank you so much to you and our esteemed ministers for including the voice of business today in this event. You know, for far too long, we've been struggling within this challenging environment, uncertain revenue streams, tremendous instability in our business ecosystem. So the Alberta Jobs Now program is going to provide that much needed support to help businesses find new talent, invest in training, and re-engage a workforce of unemployed and underemployed Albertans in order to help them as they emerge from this pandemic and begin to grow their operations. You know, with the fourth highest unemployment rate in the country, hard to believe, Edmonton needs to get people back to work as quickly as possible, and this program will help us do just that. We commend government for nearly tripling the total funding for Alberta Jobs Now since it was initially announced when the budget 2021 was released. This is going to help supplement existing support programs and ensure that governments not only provide a safety net for the hardest hit businesses, but a much needed boost for businesses that are desperately seeking growth and new opportunities. Alberta Jobs Now is going to also help, it's been noted, Albertans who, thanks to this pandemic, have faced barriers in actively and fully participating in a really diverse and inclusive workforce. And this program is a great example, thank you so much, of governments working in close collaboration. You know, something that we've seen time and time again throughout this pandemic, and something that I can assure you that we recognize, that businesses recognize and are very grateful for. We need Alberta Jobs Now. Creating new jobs is the only way to rise up and rebuild a strong, sustainable economy. So again, my thanks, and go Oilers!
Thank you so much, Janet. We're now going to be moving over to the media Q&A section here. And just a reminder to folks on the line that you could please limit yourself to 2 questions off the top or 1 question and 1 follow-up. And a reminder as well to everyone on the line that the people available for questions are Premier Kenney, Minister Copping, Minister Sawhney, and Minister Schweitzer. Thank you. And with that, we will take your first question.
Chris Varco, Calgary Herald.
Hi, I have a question for the Premier. Premier, how do you ensure that this program is going to be creating or retraining new workers that otherwise wouldn't be hired, rather than perhaps people who would have been hired anyway?
Well, okay, actually going to ask Minister Copping to take that.
Right, thanks for the question. The design of the program is to create long-term permanent jobs. And so we're announcing this today. So in the process by which is someone will now then need to be able to apply to see if they're eligible, and then actually go out and make a hire doing this. And they're going to have to commit for 52 weeks that they're going to have that hire in place. So we recognize that when we start talking about new jobs, this is those, you know, the intent behind the program is to defray the costs associated with hiring so that businesses will hire earlier than they otherwise would to get employees back to work as quickly as possible.
Do you have a follow-up at all, Chris?
Yeah, Premier, just on a separate topic, the International Energy Agency yesterday reported that under its pathway to net zero report that no new investments would be required around the world for new oil and gas developments. I guess, what is your reaction to that, and what will this mean for your own government in terms of jobs, revenue for Alberta and for Canada? Well,
that's, first of all, it's not a projection. Their projections include by 2040, the world consuming 70 million barrels per day of oil. That's got to come from somewhere, and it has to come from new development. It seems in their report that they're suggesting that will come from OPEC rather than from Western sources. I think that's the worst possible outcome. The best last barrel of oil will come from Alberta, Canada. The notion that we would leave to kleptocracies and dictatorships the future oil markets and just sort of have the poverty of low expectations, a kind of double standard where we allow some of the world's worst regimes to dominate global energy markets is, I think it's bad for the environment, it's certainly bad for human rights, it's bad for global peace and stability. One thing we know is that in recent years there's been record low levels of investment in new upstream development. Most projections are that we're going to see a full recovery in oil consumption immediately following COVID to 100 million to 105 million barrels per day of consumption. It's got to come from somewhere. And so we very much hope that some of the incremental supply will come from Alberta, and that will be reflected in additional investments. We think the companies here are repairing the damage done to their balance sheets during the price collapse a year ago. And we're seeing new investment come back. As I speak to the CEOs of, for example, the major oil sands companies, they are very happy to report new interest in investment because people can see the returns. These companies are generating significant cash flow and very strong profits, even as they emerge from a devastating year. And we believe investment will flow to support that. Particularly as our companies, our industry continues to improve its environmental performance to meet or beat comparable energy production around the world.
Thanks, Chris. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Kelly Kreiderman, Globe and Mail.
Okay, well, we'll try to come back to her. Operator, can you please put through our next caller?
Next question comes from Heather Urix, Global News.
Hi, this question is for the Premier as well. Premier, two of the province's biggest oil sands COVID outbreaks at CNRL Horizon and Syncrude Mildred Lake grew more than 1,000 cases while those sites were undergoing their turnaround projects. Now, you mentioned Suncor delayed theirs until June, but Imperial is doing its turnaround at Curl Lake right now. Given the risk, why didn't the province ask that this work be delayed rather than have thousands of tradespeople fly in from all over the country to what we're seeing is a really dangerous situation with these variants?
So obviously, the government of Alberta doesn't control the maintenance schedule of private companies. We have been very careful throughout the pandemic to limit the economic impact of public health restrictions. At the same time, we've worked very closely with oil sands operators and other major employers to help them be COVID safe. I would point out we've been 15, 16 months through this pandemic, and the performance of oil sands operators has been very good in terms of preventing COVID. It's regrettable that we have seen the recent surge. I do believe it probably is connected to travel with workers coming in from out of the province and out of the country. As you know, the Government of Canada controls international travel quarantine requirements, and I gather that they designated many of these jobs as being essential jobs. That is a decision of the Government of Canada, which we respect. We've done everything we can to get rapid test kits rolled out at those sites and the work camps to deliver vaccines more conveniently to those workers and to provide other support as necessary. And we're glad to see, based on the most recent data, it does appear that the total active case count in that region is coming down, and we are hopeful that we're moving very much in the right direction in the Wood Buffalo region.
Thanks. Jufa, did you have a follow-up, Heather?
I don't. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Operator, can you please put through our next caller?
James Keller, Globe and Mail.
Hi, this is a question for the Premier. What do you think of the plastics industry's lawsuit announced today against the federal government about this toxic designation for plastics, and does your government intend to join it in any way?
Well, James, we have not considered the prospect of joining the suit. I would leave our options open. As you know, we are gravely concerned about the huge federal overreach, which could jeopardize tens of thousands of jobs in a critical industry right across the country. There are, I believe, 6 provinces that host petrochemical and chemical industry facilities that represent tens of thousands of jobs. It's one of the largest industries in the country. The notion, we understand the federal government's goal here, ostensibly, is to reduce plastic waste of, for example, single-use plastics. But listing all plastic products as being toxins, as being the equivalent of mercury or lead, is ridiculous, it is unscientific, and it is completely unnecessary to achieve the goal of reducing plastic waste. We think the solution lies through the development of a circular plastics economy. Alberta and several other provinces are very committed to that. We have launched an outline of our circular plastics economy strategy, and our plea to the federal government is to work with us on that constructive approach to reduce plastic waste, which doesn't kill the hugely important plastics and chemical industries in Canada. So I completely understand that these companies are defending themselves, defending the reputational interest of their industry, defending the jobs, the employees that they hire in this country. And we've been in very close contact with several of the companies who have filed this suit, as well as the Chemical Industry Association of Canada. We have been working very closely trying to get the federal government to take a different approach. We do appreciate that they recently made some minor amendments to the bill, but it doesn't go far enough. James, we have been working on, through our petrochemical diversification incentive program, and through other programs, we've been working extremely hard on landing some major new petrochemical investments in this province. I mean, I'm talking about potentially north of $25 billion total in new capital investment and thousands of high-paying jobs that would help us to diversify. We are very concerned that if the feds don't get this right, that those investments and jobs could be jeopardized. So we stand with the industry as they try to get the federal government to take a more rational approach to this.
And James, do you have a follow-up at all?
Yeah, I just want to switch gears to the Allen inquiry. You announced on Facebook yesterday that he's received a 4th extension. I'm just wondering how you, or really anyone in Alberta, can have confidence in this process, which is proceeded in secret, blown through its initial budget, and gone a year past its deadline.
Well, first of all, as you know, the public inquiry was the target of the classic lawfare harassment campaign from Green Left special interests who receive foreign funding and desperately want to avoid the transparency that the inquiry is designed to bring. I think their frivolous lawsuit perfectly confirmed why we need that transparency, why we need to shine a spotlight on the foreign source of funds behind the campaign to landlock Canadian energy, because that campaign has cost tens of thousands of jobs and economic devastation for so many Alberta families and businesses. That we ran on a commitment to do that. We have kept that commitment. And I do know that Commissioner Allen had to spend a lot of time and resources defending his inquiry from this frivolous lawsuit from these foreign-funded special interests. As you know, their frivolous case was thrown out of court 2 weeks ago. So now the Commissioner and his team have time to focus entirely on completing their report. And I'll just say this, I'm not my time in public service, I can't ever recall a public inquiry that's come in on time. People get into, dig into these issues, often need more time. That's fine. We've said that the important thing is that they come up with a useful report that can help to govern future actions by Alberta's government in defending the women and men who work in our energy industry.
Okay, we have about time for 2 more questions today. So operator, can you please put through our penultimate caller?
Tom Ross, 660 News.
Premier, since you're talking about jobs here today, why are you still resistant to paid sick leave, especially after the pandemic? We know that paid sick leave will be very important for people post-pandemic as well to make sure people are safe and workers are protected. Have you given any thought to possibly introducing this and mandating it at a provincial level?
Well, that would pose another massive cost on employers who are, many of whom are barely surviving right now. And what our focus is on creating jobs. We have a jobs crisis in Alberta that we inherited from the previous government. We have at least 160,000 Albertans who are looking for work, many others who have left the workforce altogether, and many who are underemployed. Our economy is smaller today than it was 5 years ago. It's shocking but true to think about that. And so our obsessive focus is on job creation and economic growth, imposing massive new costs on job creators who are already reeling from higher costs would result in layoffs, not more jobs. So no, we're not going to adopt job killing policies. To the contrary, like with today, this is about creating jobs. With respect to COVID and the pandemic, Alberta was the first province, I believe, stand to be corrected on this, but as far as I know, we're the only province to be offering such a generous package for self-isolation support for people who need to take time off of work because they're sick or a close contact. So we offer 14 days of free room and board, and that provides a non-monetary support for sick workers in the range of $1,600, on top of which they get $630 in cash. So we're talking there about $2,200 of Alberta government support over 2 weeks for people who need to leave work because they are sick. They know that support is there. And on top of that, of course, they can access the federal COVID sick pay program, which offers up to $2,000 in support. So if I'm a worker, can't go to work because I feel I might be ill, I can go into that, register immediately for that self-isolation program, go to a hotel, free room and board, be safely isolated, and get $2,600 in support. I think that's pretty substantial.
And do you have a follow-up at all, Tom?
Yeah, as a follow-up on that, I understand your point about employers and their costs, and your focus is on protecting employers. But I'm talking about post-pandemic. We know that workers lack protections in the workforce. The pandemic has highlighted that. Are you not committed to helping workers after the pandemic, other than just saying, oh, we're going to try to create more jobs?
The best way to help workers is to ensure that they have a job. Unemployed people don't benefit from sick pay or any kind of pay. And we were elected to address the jobs crisis in this province. It was worsened by the global economic collapse and the energy price collapse. Our focus is on job creation and economic recovery. And we have folks here from the Chambers of Commerce. If any of them have a view about whether they believe that job creators could carry massive additional costs imposed on them by the government, they're welcome to comment on that. But I'll just say that we are not going to adopt job-killing policies that would force further layoffs because of additional costs at a time of economic crisis.
Okay, thank you very much. And operator, can you please put through our last caller?
Charlotte Desmoulins, Radio Canada.
Hi, Premier. I have a question for you. First one, why will the program you just presented to Albertans to help them go back to work just cover 25% of the employee training or salary and not more?
Well, let me just be clear. We have a whole suite of other programs where there's more government funding, including the Canada-Alberta Job Grant, and programs that we administer in partnership with the Government of Canada, where there's a larger taxpayer portion. So there's a whole range of those. And Minister Sawhney administers some of them, for example, for persons with disabilities. We have some of those programs are focused on people who need basic literacy skills. We work with First Nations to provide very generous training support. So there's a whole suite of other programs, and Minister Colby may want to comment on that. I mean, collectively, there is about $400 million in other programs. So this is in addition to that. And this is really to prime the pump for employers. We want to make sure that those employers have some skin in the game, because it's not good enough just to give somebody government training and then send them off to find a job. We want to bring them into the workforce. That is the genius of the Jobs Now program. The employer brings them in, gives them training for a skill that they need, and will only receive the full benefit from Alberta's government if they keep that person on the payroll for a year or more. So it's not just about training, it's also about integrating them into the workforce and ensuring that employers have a skin in the game here. So it's a partnership, and we're very excited about that. Did you want me to say something about that in French? I imagine
yes,
you do.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nous avons toutes sortes de programmes pour formation de main-d'œuvre qui sont disponibles, 400 millions de ces programmes-là, où le gouvernement fournisse 100% des coûts de formation de main-d'œuvre, y compris pour la communauté autochtone, les personnes handicapées et les jeunes. Nous aidons, par exemple, avec l'alphabétisation, etc. Mais cela étant dit, le programme que nous annonçons aujourd'hui, Jobs Now, c'est un partenariat entre le gouvernement et les entreprises, s'assure que les entreprises sont impliquées financièrement dans le programme. Ils font un investissement important avec un engagement d'employer les travailleurs pour au moins 1 an. Alors, c'est vraiment une intégration dans le marché du travail important.
And do you have a follow-up at all, Charlotte?
Yes, I have one. Premier, also, Albertans expect to have a summer with fewer health restrictions. You had promised it to them. So what will the next weeks look like? Can you say it in French and in English, please?
So our Emergency Management Committee of Cabinet will be meeting to discuss the way forward immediately following the long weekend, and I anticipate an announcement about a week from now. We continue to be concerned about the current high numbers in the province, particularly in our hospitals. We are at a historic high peak of intensive care admissions right now, and that's why we must continue to be cautious. Having said that, the numbers are moving in the right direction in terms of the leading indicators of new cases and total active cases. They've come down from 26,000 to, I think we might be below 20,000 active cases today. So we've seen a very encouraging decline in active cases and the rate of transmission, but we have a ways to go yet, and to reduce the pressure that continues to mount on the healthcare system. Having said that, we are seeing great progress on the vaccine program. I want to thank Albertans. Yesterday, we went past 50% of the eligible population and 42% of the total population having received at least a first dose. We're ahead of the rest of the provinces on administering second doses, which ensures stronger protection for the most elderly and vulnerable. So when we take all of that into account, I believe if we continue to see the numbers come down over the next few weeks, let me restate that. If we continue to see the COVID numbers come down and the vaccine numbers continue to go up, we will be in a good position a month or 6 weeks from now to move towards a significant opening of Alberta and relaxation of public health measures to have a great summer. But whether and when we get there will be entirely dependent on how Albertans respond over the next few weeks. They respond by limiting social interaction wherever possible and to getting vaccinated. So I'll try to do that shorter in French. nous restons inquiets, excusez-moi, nous sommes toujours inquiets de la situation avec la croissance des chiffres de COVID-19, particulièrement quant aux hôpitaux. Avec les soins intensifs, nous sommes à un niveau historique de pression à cet égard. Mais, cela étant dit, le nombre de nouvelles infections diminue considérablement. Alors, ça va dans la bonne direction. Et le nombre des Albertains qui reçoivent les vaccins, ça augmente d'une façon importante. Hier, plus de 50% de la population qui qualifie pour les vaccins l'ont reçu. Alors, j'espère que nous serons dans une position d'ici 4 à 6 semaines de considérer une relaxation large, importante des mesures de santé publique pour avoir une grande été albertain. Mais quand nous arrivons à ce point-là, ça dépend sur les actions des Albertains et particulièrement sur le nombre des gens qui décident d'avoir le vaccin.
Thanks, folks. That wraps up our media availability today.
Sorry for my mangled French today.